Hello guys, so today I want to show you how to configure your Bulla POS like a, like a pro in a way that it's like an open source project. So I want you to clone it so that we can develop together. So what you do in this folder that I'll share with you, this Git repo that I'll share with you called Bulla POS, you'll find these directives here. Under this you'll find we have two branches, main and master, so note that. And then inside main you'll find this installation procedure for Bulla POS. So this is the developer's manual on how to do the entire installation. So first of the things that you need to get started, you need to install some of the packages. So you can use VS Code or whichever IDE that you want, and then make sure you have Composer, a package manager for PHP, and then also have Node.js. There's a package manager for Node, for JavaScript that is. And then you'll need to have a SAMP also installed. This is for Windows and Mac users, but for other users like the Linux users, you don't need this. So what you just need to do is have maybe Apache installed, which is there by default, and then you can configure it and run through. After that, you need to download your files. Now, how do you download these files? So under this repo, you can either decide to download when you're on master project, because that's where the project is, or you might also decide to clone it. So cloning is the best because now you can push your updates. So what you just do, you clone this project. How do you do it? After you install SAMP, you just go to your SAMP folder, htdocs, and then you need to clone in there. It will create a folder called Bulla POS. And then this Bulla POS is where now you need to change to this directory. Once you're there, you need now to check out to master. Once you check out to master, it will now go to this. It will now show you the parent, the directories like these ones, the admin, blah blah blah, up to the end. Yeah, so once you're there, the next step is you can also decide to download. Once you download, you don't need to check out in any branch. And then now you need to install some packages. So how do you do this? First, let's start from the front end. So what you do, you go to that folder and then you just run npm install. That one should work. If it fails, you can try npm upgrade to maybe check the dependencies and stuff. And then after that, you may decide to run either of these, npm run serve. That will launch your product or your front end in localhost in port 8000. And also the next step will be to install your packages and your APIs or your backend. So just change to the API folder, which is inside the Bulla POS folder that you cloned, and then you can just run composer update. So out of those two, you will be having a project like this. You'll be having a project like this. So you'll be having a folder structure like this. Like this with all those modules installed. So you'll have a project like this. So we are concentrating on admin and API. This is the backend and this is the front end. So under the front end, after you run npm install, this folder will be created with all your packages that you need for that particular project. So it will install all these packages. And then when you are on your API, after you run composer update, it will create now this vendor folder with all the requirements that you need. So under this admin, let me make it bigger. So under this admin, if you run npm run serve, you should be able to, view your product. So it will run your application. This is after you run npm install and all your packages have been installed. So once you run that, what it will do, it will now launch your product. But then before then, there are the envs that we need to configure before we come to that, and which are now this is the configuration of the environmental files. So first, on your admin.env, and that's your front end, you need to configure an env file with these particular parameters. So let me just show you where that is. So when you go to admin, there's under the home directory, there's this env file. So just make sure that it's configured as highlighted on the project. So you just make sure it has this line of code. So you just create that file and then copy paste this and have it installed. So this basically will give us the base URL for your API URL, the base URL for your product, and then the root folder where the front end is installed. So right now, because we launch using npm run serve, it will go to port 8080. So that's what we are having. That's what we are having here. So you'll see once I run this, it will run onto this port 8080. And now if I open that, if you control and click, or you open that in our browser, you'll be able to see something like this. You'll be able to see something like this. You should be able to see something like this. But then, if you haven't configured all your env, it might just be on that page and still loading. So you need to also configure this env before running that application. So you also need to configure the view.config file. You can just copy paste this. So what this one does, here is the file. So you just go find this view.config file and then install this. Ignore these ones. These are just my parameters. So what this one does, it sets the public path. So if it's in production, it will set the public path to this. If it's not in production, it's in development, it will load this particular path. So those two. So just what you need to do is just copy this and paste it in that view.config file. And that's it. Now for the backend, we need to also ensure that the backend runs. So you go to API, let's configure the database on the API after we run composer update. So you just go to this API folder, find the .env. So you might find this deploy demo, deploy local. So you might copy either of these or even use this example.env. So you just copy this file and then save it. So how you do it, you might even say copy and then you just say paste, or whatever way that you feel, or maybe even just copy this, or even click on save as, control shift save as, and then you save it as env without the example. If it already exists, it will tell you to override. You can override, and then you can now find that file called env. So you'll find that file. Let me just create it again, and then I just say save it .env. So it will create this file. If it adds this .text extension, that's just remove it, have it like that. So this is the env, and then you'll go to this place in the env where there is the database. So this one you'll just need to set it as Bulla POS, and then if your database has a password, you can put this password. If it doesn't, you can just leave it. And then this is how you do it. So you just save that, and then out of that, now you'll come to run on your file on your front end. So once you're here, you just go to your API folder. That's where your backend is, and then here you'll run composer update to update your packages. And then out of that, now that's when we go to the next step of installing databases. So once this is configured, you can just copy this section and add it, and then now you run this final command to install the database and stuff. So what you just do, you just come here and run php artisan migrate, and then you say fresh, and then this one, it will do a fresh migration, and then it will seed your databases. So wait for that process to complete. Once it's complete, now based on the database, but before then you need to create that database on your HTML. So like you'll see, this one won't run because it will complain these are non-database Bulla POS. So what you just need to do is to go to your local host, phpMyAdmin, and then configure your database, like set up or create that database so that you can find it. So you just go to new, then create this database called Bulla POS. After you create the database, now you can come back and run the migrations. So let me run it again. Yeah, so this migration will run, and automatically once it's done, it will create for you some let me correct something here so that you won't face it when you're installing. I just push the latest update so that you don't face the same challenge. So when you run that command, it should go through to the end. Yes, so it should complete even the seeding successfully. So I'll push the latest code so that you don't face that error. And then so once that is done, you'll find now your table has been created. It will create a number of tables in here. So note that sometimes this table of viewers won't create with a camel case, table names or database names and stuff. So it might create all the tables with lowercase, and that might give you errors when you're running your application. So what you need to do in that, you just go to configure. You need to configure your MySQL. So you just go to that installation of yours, that SAMP folder. Just go to SAMP folder, go to, is it PHP admin? I think it's MySQL or something like that. MySQL. MySQL my dot, let me check this. This is the file that we need to update. Find MySQLD. Yes, so you need to add this line. So you need to add this line saying lowercase table names is equals to 2. So just below this, find this in your inside your, you go to MySQL, you go to SAMP MySQL, and then bin, and then find my.config. That's this file called what? It's just my. Yeah, this file. You'll see this file. Where did it go? You'll see this file my.config. Open that file and then find. Just Control F to find this MySQLD. Then when you find that, add this line. You'll find you have no this line, so you can just add it, lowercase table names and this one. For other operating systems like Linux and Mac, you'll need to Google. I think others might need you to add one. Others might, yeah. I think on Linux it's one. So just find out how that's done and then do it if you're using Linux or Mac. After that, now that's when you can just rerun this. You can just rerun this command php artisan migrate fresh seed, and then it will seed all your database. So once your database appears this way, just check, confirm all the camel case databases are set as required, and then that's it. So you'll have configured your database. So out of that, when you now go to your backend, so you just need to go back to your backend. So assuming you are here, you are on this folder. So you just need to go to your admin folder, and then you run now php artisan. You run npm run server dev. That now will launch your application, and now you'll have your application well installed. So what I want you to do now is just follow that process and try to install the entire applications that you're having. So that is do all that, and then this is the final command. Now if there's something I left, probably let me just confirm. Yeah, so in cloning, I hope I showed you how to clone this. So I'll just give you right to this folder, and then you can clone the project. So do that first, and then make sure you're having this, you're having it laid out as this. Let me just show you in a second. So make sure you're having, once you launch your product, you can now see this. Once you do php artisan serve, it will launch onto your port 8080, and then confirm. Now when you load your 8080, you can view the login screen. So that's it, guys, for now. I'll not wait for this one to complete running, but that's it for now. Configure up to there, and then we move to the next step of development. So thank you, and meet on the next tutorial. Bye bye.